Anderson fans? Any Clive Anderson fans?
Chance in a million.
Okay, anyone who learned some pretty cool negotiating tricks tonight? Yes, awesome, thank you. Anyone who knows they already have a question they want to ask? Okay, everyone's feeling shy. Okay, George, you've got one. Well, stop feeling shy. I'm going to warm things up for you. Please let me introduce you to the man sitting next to me here is Clive Anderson, and the man sitting next to him is Dan Patterson. Now, Clive, you might have noticed, starred and emceed this wonderful play, Winner's Curse, that we saw tonight, the world premiere production here at the Park Theatre. Dan co-wrote Winner's Curse with another Daniel Taub, who sadly couldn't be with us tonight, but he is, in fact, a diplomat and international negotiator and lecturer, and he's taken part in many negotiations in the Middle East and elsewhere. So quite a pedigree that we've got involved in Winner's Curse. Before we start speaking specifically about Winner's Curse, I just wanted to get to know a little bit more about you guys and your relationship, because you, in fact, have collaborated long before this production that we've seen on stage.
Yes.
Can you tell us, Clive, when did you first meet Dan, and how did you start to work with him?
Dan and I met in 1985, 86 or something like that.
The cabaret upstairs, which was for stand-ups. And in the middle, Clive used to compare it, but in the middle of it, in between acts, he would interview people from the audience. And this was funnier than most of the stand-up that were on it. So when we were doing Whose Line Is It Anyway, we said, well, we've got to get stuff from the audience anyway. If we have Clive, that part will become very funny. So it won't just be a functionary sort of part, it will enhance it. And we actually had the same thought process on this, which was there were going to be negotiation exercises. If we can get Clive in, those exercises will become very funny. And it was exactly the same thought process, and he's done brilliantly again.
Well, Dan, you've leapfrogged. You're not following.
No, I was leapfrogging.
Well, where's the frog? We're leaping.
Well, okay. So you owe a lot to each other in terms of the development of your careers. What is it that you like about working together?
Oh.
Well, I can tell you exactly what it is, Dan. I've done other programs with other people, and sometimes when things aren't going well, they'll say, oh, never mind, Clive, it's only television. And I remember somebody saying that. And then I started doing something else with Dan again. And the next thing he said to me, Clive, I'm not sure that's right, that first bit. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning worrying about this for 3 hours. Now, that's it. That's what I want, is a producer who's up all night doing the worrying. And it's not me being the most worried person. So Dan is a complex personality. He's made a lot of improvised programs, but he likes to be in complete control of them, which is an impossible thing.
It is. For my temperament, it's the worst actual thing, yeah.
And what is it that's great about working with Clive, Dan?
He's just incredibly quick, and he's very warm, and he engages people very well. I don't believe anybody here ever felt threatened during the audience parts. But he is the quickest person I've ever worked with, and I've worked with some people who are very quick-witted, but he is the fastest.
Very good. Now, you have had enormous success, both of you, in broadcast, but this is not the first foray into theatre for either of you either. Dan, I know you wrote The Duck House, which was a big success, transferred to the West End. Clive, amongst other things, you've got a one-man show that you're taking out on tour.
Oh, yeah, I did it last year. I'm doing it this year. It's called, I'm not allowed to say it really here, but it's called, well, I'll say it because it's called Me, Macbeth and I. It's just me talking about things Scottish, things English, history, geography, and disasters, mostly my disasters on television.
Okay.
So, but it is an interesting thing. If you come from broadcast, theatre is this complex thing of being incredibly wonderful and magical and maddening at the same time. Because in TV, if you have a good night, you have it captured. And if you have a bad night, you can usually edit it to make it into a good night. Yeah. Whereas in the theatre, you just spend your whole time saying, oh, you should have come 2 days ago, because it was just fantastic 2 days ago.
Well, you should have come 2 days ago.
Because it just is gone. I mean, that is the magic of it, that for every person here, these wonderful actors did it just for you. So that's the magic of it, but you don't know how any night is going to go, and you don't know how big the laughs will be or whether people respond to the drama in the same way, because every audience is different. And that is, to me, the biggest thing between broadcast and theatre.
This is so wonderful because you have predicted my question, because that is exactly where I was leading. Thank you for answering it.
So I
in
leapfrog
advance.
again.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did.
Yeah.
But Clive, is that the same for you? What attracts you to doing theatre?
No, I like having an audience there is good fun, and television can't capture that. But television has other compensations.
Okay, so specific.
Not that I'm saying I'm not amply rewarded for calling here at the Park Theatre. Can I just say, I'm just slightly worried, because there's a group of friends of mine have come in. They've very kindly come to see this play, and they'd normally expect him having a drink now after the thing. And I don't think it's compulsory for you to sit through me rabbiting on.
Are those your friends in the back?
Yeah, they all play football. They're all fine football.
Football.
I play football with them, and they're expecting a drink up by now. I'm guessing.
I bonded with them before the show. They knew this was happening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
they committed. Didn't you? Yes? You're nodding. Fantastic. Okay, so let's talk about Winner's Curse. How did this project come about, Dan?
Well, Daniel Taub, who is not with us, is, as you quite rightly said, a diplomat, and I knew him he was a diplomat, the Israeli ambassador to England, and I knew him, and he had, but he's actually English. He's born here. He went to school here. He said, "I've got an idea for a play based on negotiation, but I can't see how I can get these negotiation ideas into the play." And I said, "Well, you could just have a character just turn to the audience at that point." So, well, let's have a look at that. And he sort of had an outline, and he started working on this outline, and it's been about 6 years. I mean, it's been a long time, and we did various things. We said, well, it can't just be a lecture. We've got to have characters that you care about. We've got to make the drama work. Got to land, as the Americans would say. And we did a read about
a year ago.
About a year ago. Michael was in it, actually. We're very, very lucky to have Michael Maloney, who is a tremendous
top actor.
Yeah. Can I just say it is absolutely wonderful. I was convinced, actually it was Jez Bond who suggested Michael, and I had just
Jez
recently
is the
seen...
artistic director here and the director of this production.
And the director of this production, and I'd just seen Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet movie, which was, by the way, incredible, and Michael was wonderful in that movie, and I just went, oh my God, if we could get him, we would be so lucky.
He played Yorick's skull.
Yeah, he did, yeah. And we did a read, and I think that convinced Jez that there was something there. And Clive was doing the audience part, and it was very funny. And we all said, it's just got to be funnier. Because if you've got Clive doing the audience parts, it feels like it's a comedy. And although there's a drama, and although there's negotiation theory in these... So we spent a lot of time working on Vaslika's character and young Lightsky, Arthur up there, those characters and various ones, and started putting the humour in, which I think is there. And I think that's the biggest difference from and also simplified it, because believe it or not, it was way, way more complicated in terms of the golden thing. I mean, at the end of the thing, Daniel and I had been working together on it, and I said, Daniel, I just don't quite understand this gold thing. He said, that's bad if you're wondering too. And we simplified it and tried to turn it into that. And I have to say, Jez has put it on its feet, and I think his direction has been incredibly imaginative, and he's sort of kept it moving along and there's stuff going on. And it's been, I mean, the Park Theatre I think is fantastic, and I think it's just been a joy watching this thing come to life. And can I just say, by the way, it is one of the things with plays that as you go along, obviously, people get more familiar with their lines and with everything like that. And we've had generally very good reviews. Everybody who came on press night really loved it. We got 4 stars. There were the Times of the Guardian came during previews when it wasn't quite ready. And so if you've read their reviews, I don't think that's a fair reflection on the play, because people have come along and really enjoyed it. And as I said, I kind of think we're a 4-star play, and we got Telegraph, Times, What's on Stage, all gave us 4 stars. And I think that is a better
Time out, he
representation.
adds.
No, I'm just correcting it's not times. But,
What did I say?
time doesn't matter. Yeah.
But you guys, I have to say, you've just broken 2 theatrical taboos as I've sat here on stage with you, mentioning the name of the Scottish play and talking about reviews.
Oh, is that right?
Just in the room. Good.
Oh, we're from TV, that's all we care about.
But as you mentioned to the cast, thank you, Michael Maloney, and well done on a professional debut from our
And
Winnie.
Winnie.
They searched high and low to find Arthur. To somebody who looked exactly like I looked.
I can see the resentment.
It was astonishing. My height, my hair, everything.
I also just wanted to mention, picking up on something Dan said, if you haven't, please do get a copy of the programme. It's very good, and there's a great Q&A with Daniel Taub in it, who gives you some even more fantastic tips for negotiating. Clive, what did you think when Daniel and Dan came to you with this project? Did you think, oh yeah, fancy that?
Well, the first thing was the read-through, and since I just live in Highbury, it was, nice little, trip up here. Dan's an old friend, and we've done a lot of different projects together. What harm could come from just coming along and reading? There was an audience and these proper actors acting away. It didn't really occur to me, because I'm a natural pessimist, that the next thing would be, oh, we're going to put it on now, we want you to be in it. So I tried turning it down several times on the basis that it's far too busy, and I can't manage this. And I've enjoyed it a lot. It's been great working with, seeing how rehearsals work in the theatre and the hard work that goes into that. And because it's a new play, there's with scenes that have been cut or moved around a bit, and every time you do that, they have to rework out how everybody comes on, and that's another 2 hours just to get. And I've just about got to the point I don't bump into people as they're coming on and say my lines at the wrong point. And sometimes I even say the lines in the right order, but that surprises people when it happens, so it throws them off.
Well, you convinced me. But I must say that your former colleagues with whose line is it anyway must be impressed with how you improvise with the audience. Is there much improv going on when you're interacting with Hamza and...
No, well, everybody's different. There's no, what you weren't very good tonight. What was it? You didn't get the thumb.
The thumb thing, but I have to say,
sometimes
the audience though was relatively sane, because we often get
Yeah.
people in the audience who are just utterly bonkers, and that does give Clive more chance to...
I still can't get it when you say they're negotiating over 200 plotniks and people give 400. Where do they? If it was sort of pounds sterling, you'd say, well, I've thrown the money in, but where are you going to get your plotniks from?
They're making up. Okay, audience, how are you feeling? Are you feeling warmed up? Who's got a question? Yes, here in
How
front
did
row.
you choose what negotiation things to involve the audience?
That was Daniel Taub. He knows these exercises, and in fact, there's one exercise which we dropped after about the third day because it was just too long. The play was 20 minutes longer than it was, and we just had to get rid of some stuff. And I think it's just one I will tell you about very briefly, because I think it's so clever, is Clive says, I've got a £20 note here, and I want people to start bidding for it. And the twist is that whoever goes highest gets it, but the second highest person also has to pay. And this shows what escalation is. And you start going up, and of course, somebody's left suddenly with £19, and they've got to pay, so they'll go £21. Because at least they're then only £1 down rather than £19 down.
It's a magical part of the theatre. It's been cut.
I don't
know why.
It was great. I really like that.
It's good to. It's up my sleeve. I think, in the sense that, let's say something goes wrong, and there's
like the Bee Gees walk in.
But in the play, the 10. That's the third thing. It wasn't the 10 minutes of something needs to be corrected. I could always do that.
You could, yes.
There was another one. There was a negotiation thing over the break.
The drink, we originally had it in where
I'm gradually getting that back in again.
Yeah.
With just mild references.
Clive had a bit, when people came back, well, he said there was a prize just before the interval. He said there's a prize for whoever can get somebody to buy them a drink, a stranger, to buy them a drink in the most imaginative way, and then he would come back and say, well, what actually happened? And
that's another 20 minutes.
But it
does vary the whole time. You can't guarantee that everyone's going to get the ideas, and people sometimes want to join in.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's.
Have you had a favourite interaction from one of your exercises?
Well,
there was the woman who was she Belgian? A Greek, the Greek.
Oh, there's
one.
Greek. Yes, there's a Greek one who insisted that because she was Greek, she was going to get everything wrong or right or whatever. There was a Swiss person the other night. That was fun because he'd had to, Swiss described as cuckoo clocks and harbouring Nazis, but he took that quite well.
Yeah, and there was the one with the couple having to negotiate over the 200 plotniks, sitting down there, and she said, well, I don't know, something like, well, do I get sex thrown in or something as well?
And you've imagined that bit,
Yeah.
I guess. You've imagined that's being said to you
So many
before.
times.
Well, I have to say, I love the one about the P on the forehead.
Oh, yes.
That's going to be my new party trick.
Well, that would
Yeah.
be quite a party trick.
Yes,
Okay.
peeing on the forehead. Is good. I found a couple tonight. Sometimes I can't find a couple who. It's best if a couple can argue about it rather than just
Yes,
in general terms.
that couple was very good-natured about it. Okay, other hands. Yes, here.
You mentioned that Daniel was...
Could you just speak up a little bit?
Sorry. You mentioned that Daniel was an ambassador in Israel. Is the storyline based roughly on any of the negotiations, like an actual story that happened to him while he was in Israel?
No, it really isn't. I mean, funny enough, we had some people at the Ridge who went, I see, well, the Ridge is this and that. But we deliberately wanted something that wasn't real, partly because the stuff that Israel, whether it's the Middle East or Europe right now, is just not pleasant and it's not good comedy ground. And so we just wanted to make it completely fictitious and just to show the rules of it. So, I mean, look, you could probably make some parallels, but it's not really,
You're
I think.
switching it to Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Asian
Yeah.
border. That's a non-controversial area. Isn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking beyond, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the latest invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Parking that one, we are, it seems to me, just in so many negotiation crises, be it industrial relations here or the endless negotiations with the EU over the Northern Ireland protocol. Do you or does Daniel think that, we're losing the art of negotiating?
Well, Daniel, by the way, it's a shame he's not here because he's very, very clever. And he really, the really clever stuff in the play.
I thought you did that.
Yeah, I did that. When he's sort of saying, oh no, the thing is not to find good ideas, it's to bring up bad ideas. And that is very much him and based on his
And
stuff.
and all that dance thing that you do when you know what the end point is. But I wondered, did he have a romance with somebody like Winnie's character? Is that
I asked.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
Because I asked if Regina was based on somebody that he knew in real life, and he was like, no. But he has met a lot of powerful women in the negotiation circle that have definitely influenced her.
And they're
Well, the
naturally
women-
more empathetic, obviously.
Yeah, but the women win through in this play, don't they? Winnie almost does, for all we know. Not Winnie, but Regina. But Madame Basilica, she is the only one who gets what she wants. She's just a comedy character for half the play, 3/4 of the play, until right at the end.
Very good. Okay, hand here.
How do you find learning lines versus improv, and how do you prepare for improv?
I'm not very good at learning lines. I find it quite hard, especially because it's a new play and we're sort of changing things around about. So sometimes I've got in my head what the original line was, what I thought it should be, what I was told no, it can't be. And the other thing, and I think I've got right now, I'm happy, chatting to the audience, and I know it's the next bit, and I start going off. Oh no, I'm supposed to say a line, a particular line, because the lighting cue, the entrance is all dependent on that. But I'm getting there. I think by about the last night.
No, it's really come on.
But you're sniggering a little bit, I hear.
No,
Dan's had to put up with a lot from me over the years.
No, Clive, I think, has absolutely got it now, and I think not coming so much from this background, I think the improv stuff with the audience comes very naturally to you.
Yes.
And I think it was an effort to learn, because he's got a very big part, and it's sort of.
I've learnt a lot from my proper acting colleagues. They know their lines perfectly.
You know your lines, you do.
Yeah, but you know your lines, and if you ever make even the slightest slip, nobody can tell about you because you do it so brilliantly, Michael. Whereas I tend to give it away by spluttering.
Well, so this has gone wrong.
How are you finding dealing with the revolve as well?
I quite like that. I'd like to do more of that. I want to sort of leap on it and off and play with it, but I'm not really supposed to. But well, Jez was very keen to have the revolve, and I'm sure it's worth it. It saves moving those tables round even more than they do.
Very good. Other hands? Yes, here.
It seems to me that all these professional negotiators know each other's dark hearts. And so you've got a room full of very cynical people negotiating, and it becomes a battle of their sort of egos, just as divorce lawyers battle it out and they forget their clients' better interests. I mean, does Daniel Taub have a very cynical view of the world now he's older than he was as a young aspiring diplomat?
That's a very good question. My sense of him is he's very sunny and upbeat. When I ask him about things that are going on, he always, can't remember if it was him or his predecessor, but it might have been him, said, the thing to always remember is nothing is ever as good as it seems, and nothing is ever as bad as it seems. And actually, he's usually quite optimistic. Almost always, if you ask him about something terrible, he would say, yes, 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 but the one bright light which nobody is thinking about. And so actually, I think he's the opposite of cynical. I mean, he does know this area very well. He really does. And he had, he was thinking if the run extended or it ever transferred, he had a whole lot of other negotiation exercises to put in to change it around a bit. But actually, I don't think that's necessary, because I think the audience changes it every night. So
although he's not here now, he was coming quite a lot, Charlie. And so he would often be in the audience somewhere, and then this Dan would be in the audience. And I have to say that Daniel Taub always had a sort of seraphic smile on his face, whereas you look terrified all the way through.
Well,
and
actually,
you always have done.
I know I'm not allowed to, but on press night, I'd been given a seat there in the front row, and Clive walked on and just caught my eye. And for the rest of the thing, I was like this, because I didn't want to catch anyone's eye. And everyone went, you look like you were despairing. But all it was I was just trying. Michael was sort of coming around, and I'm very conscious that I don't want to be catching an actor's eye, because they're in the middle of their zone. So it just seems like the worst thing I could possibly be doing.
But you were just telling me that you've been to most of the performances so far.
I've been to a lot. Well, partly, and this happened on the Duck House, is you just become a laugh junkie. So you're going, well, I got a better laugh last night. Oh, no, we've got a big laugh coming up now. That should be good. Oh, why isn't that one getting it? And but this one is very different, because the audience is different every time. So every night, the 5 or 6 audience interactions are different. So it's actually, it's a wonderfully new experience every night. It's great.
Yeah. And has he ever put you off when you catch his eye?
No, no. Years ago, when I was doing telly with him, in a television studio, there's like 5, 6 cameras, and if ever I did something he disapproved of when I was interviewing somebody, with all the chat shows with him, I didn't have an earpiece or anything, but I could hear his voice as all the cameramen have little earpieces. He goes, and then, Dan, it's all right. Yeah, it's fine, but I wonder if we could do it again. So I always got an idea.
No, the big thing was always that if we were doing Clive Anderson Talks Back or one of the chat shows, and a guest hadn't worked, and I'm thinking we're just going to have to cut that guest out, I would say to him, could you thank everybody again, but don't thank the person who is currently sitting next to you?
Didn't happen that often.
It didn't happen.
Yeah.
Can I just point somebody out in the audience
Yes,
who's really
you may.
interesting? She's my guest tonight, but there's Angela Allen there. And for people, connoisseurs in the film world, Angela Allen worked on The African Queen, on The Third Man, with Marilyn Monroe. She's just anybody that you know from film history. She will say she did continuity in all of these things, and she will say, I knew them, I worked with Marilyn, or I worked with her. So,
Day after backup to have a film legend in the house.
The Third Man's practically my favourite film, so that was...
Well, there's going to be a running at the Garden Cinema on the 25th, I think.
Oh, right. Oh, well, I'll give
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got a couple minutes left. Any final questions? Yes, in the back?
Yeah, from a producing point of view, how is Winners Curse going to work without Clive Anderson?
Why, what do you know that we don't know?
I don't mean
So-
this run, but this is a premiere.
So let me just say the question.
Life of its own.
I was going to say we are recording this, so just in case that didn't get cut, the question is, can this play be done again if you don't have Clive Anderson doing his thing.
Yeah, I'm sure it can, but does that...
No, hang on.
He's your agent.
Just while the negotiations are on, let's have this fiction that it could only... There'll be other people that can do it. They'll do it in their different ways. There's always something.
But look, it's a good question, because I genuinely, I was very much hoping Clive would do it, because I think there are other people who could do it, but I do not believe they would do it as well as Clive does it. And I think it's very important to have Clive as part of the mix.
So when we're doing the Palladium...
We'll talk to your people, but there's always others.
Would you be interested in a transfer?
I'm not doing this negotiation now.
But in a serious way, is that something that does appeal? Like, I mean, doing the same thing every night for 6 months?
Well, I've said already, I'm a natural-born pessimist, so the idea that whatever it is, a week or 10 days into a run at the Park Theatre, that I could contemplate talking about doing it elsewhere. That's
isn't that a bad thing to discuss?
Yeah, I'll jinx it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were there other hands in the audience? Yes.
One question for Dan. Dan, you and Daniel went to Clive with a fantastic idea. A fantastic cast, and really the cast were absolutely amazing guys. Well done. So
they are. They're fantastic.
But
very lucky.
Just a question for me: how do you negotiate with Clive how to miss Arsenal matches?
Well, that's also a good question, because I said I'm going back to the game. So, well, I can't. Whatever's coming up, I'm going to miss. But he is there. He did walk on Saturday. I walked in and said, "Oh, I heard Arsenal were drawing," and he went, "Yes." And then somebody in the dressing room went, "Oh no, they've gone 3-2 up," and then it was 4-2, and then he was going, "Yeah!" And so he's very much part of all of this. But it's a very good question. I think, how is he missing the strollers? And that's the bigger thing.
Yeah, I know. I give a lot to my art.
Is it a big sacrifice for you, Clive?
Yeah, it's a sacrifice, but I often think Arsenal do better when I'm not there. I always miss the best games, and certainly my football friends will confirm they all play better when I'm not there. The standard is definitely higher.
They are nodding. Let it be noted. Okay. Any other hands? I wanted to talk also about your relationship with the Park Theatre. This is a significant season for the Park. It's 10 years of this wonderful theatre here in Finsbury Park. And you, Clive, have tread the boards here before?
I've trodden the boards. There's a fundraiser Jez has put on a couple of times, a sort of Whodunnit. Has anyone been to that? It's a Whodunnit.
They're fantastic.
And you get this great... He's very well connected. There's a very long list of big theatrical stars, one of whom, on any given performance, will come on and be the detective who doesn't know what's going on. Everyone else is improvising or performing. You have to sort of fit in with the thing, or if you've seen it, you've seen it. And there's an awful, because I've done that a couple of times, but there's a slightly odd moment when, it's revealed, oh, it's me, and there's people going, oh, who's he? And they've got these great long lists of who are the other big stars that they thought they might get. But it's fun to do.
I think it's brilliant. I think that fundraiser, having grown up doing improv myself, I'm just amazed at the standard of that thing. I think it's fantastic. I think that Jez runs this play. I don't know how he does it, because he was directing this play, which, as you can see, there's a lot of direction in it, while having to be working on the next 5 things that are all coming in here, plus all the community stuff that the Park Theatre does. I think it is incredibly impressive, and not only the standard but the range of stuff they do, and I feel very privileged to have been part of it.
I interview a lot of people still on the radio, and Park Theatre features I think the only time I've ever asked somebody how much they get paid for things, because I was interviewing Harry Shearer, who does a lot of the different voices in The Simpsons, and he was doing a play here. And I wanted to compare what he got for doing The Simpsons and what he paid here. And I can't remember what the figure was, because there'd been a strike or something, but it's something like £1 million an episode, $1 million an episode, or something. And I naively said, that's worth flying back to LA for. And he said, I don't fly back to LA. I record it wherever I am in the world. He just goes into a booth, and he's often doing the characters talking to each other. So I said, do you get more or less than that when you're at the Park Theatre? And he wouldn't tell me.
It is a secret that stays here.
I know now.
You know now. Okay, so to finish up, let's talk about what we are looking forward to, and I'm hoping that we can look forward to both of you getting more involved in theatre. Tell me, Clive, what is next for you?
Well, we mentioned already, you don't want to say it again, I've had this one-man show that I take around and I did. I started doing it just at the beginning of the pandemic. So having mentioned the Scottish play by name, it set the pandemic off. So I've been delayed. So I did it last year at various dates around the country, and I'm doing a load more this year. What else do you need to know about?
That sounds good.
Oh, that's enough. I do Loose Ends on the radio. I do
And your podcast, I was listening
a podcast, yes, my Seven Wonders. I interview people, and we do those sometimes with an audience. I'm doing some of those at the Leicester Square Theatre in Sundays coming soon.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And Dan?
Well, I'm busy on TV stuff, but that's the sort of day job. But Jez does have 3 other plays that I've co-written, so it's which one of them, and they're all, this one, because it was written with Daniel Taub, has sort of intelligence and content in it. These other ones are just facile bits of comedy, but they are.
You could have done that on your own.
Yeah. But so he's got 3. So I'm hoping that at some point he will say which one of those he'd like to do, because I think he is interested in doing it.
And what will you next do together, you and Clive?
Me and Clive?
Yeah,
we have been doing the Whose Line, Is It Anyway live things. We did it at the Palladium, we did it at the Albert Hall. So I think there's always a chance one of those will come back.
Everyone staying healthy and fit enough to still be in there?
Well, who knows? But that's a possibility. But, maybe if, on the producer front, you get a producer to transfer it, then this will...
Yeah, we're not going to jinx it, but
Well
it is here until the 11th of March, correct, Daniel?
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, I'm Terry Paddock. I was so nervous that I forgot to introduce myself before I introduced them. But I am really privileged to be able to do lots of these post-show Q&As, including I've got 2 more coming up at the Park Theatre. So I'll be back here on the 29th of March for The Way Old Friends Do, with a Q&A with the cast, the playwright Ian Hallard, and the director, who happens to be Mark Gatiss, so that should be a good one. And then after that, I'm here on the 24th of April for another new play. These are all new plays, called Animal, which is written by John Bradfield, inspired by a story by John Bradfield and Josh Heppel, and details of that are in the program, which I'm hoping you're all going to buy. Okay, so that is good. Am I missing anything else I should be telling people, Daniel? Okay, so please spread the word about the show. For those of you who are on social media, once we give a big clap, please get your phones out, take a photo, and share it widely, and tell people to come again.
And we should have, I do think, for the performers who are here, because I think the cast was particularly stunningly good.
As well. And then please join me in thanking Clive Anderson and Dan Patterson.